time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanopt.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back into another weekly update. It's the Harmonious at Lunch Wupdate episode. If you're listening to this live, air quotes on live, happy Friday, happy end of the week. We had an awesome 4 episodes of How this week at the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. The guests included Yossi Amram, Jillian Utesh, Tracy Sundquist, and Jake Smolarek. I have to say that's probably the biggest mouthful of guests we've had on the show in any one week, but the 4 of them were absolute rock stars, and thanks and shout out to you guys for coming on the show, putting on great episodes. And we covered the whole gambit again. We went from being a spiritually intelligent leader and bringing spiritual intelligence and a higher intelligence into the workplace. We talked about marketing. We talked about growing your business. We talked about having a roadmap for your business. And we talked about using AI robots to network with people. So we're going to dive in here. We'll recap the week. I got clips. We'll go through everything super high level. If you missed this week, though, or if you missed any of the episodes this week, listen here, see if it intrigues you. If so, go back. You know where to find the episodes. But I encourage you to listen to all 4 of these. I think they apply to everyone in business, no matter the stage. You can pull some nugget out of what we talked about in these 4 episodes, and I think it's going to be awesome. So let's dive in. Monday's episode, Yossi Amram. This was interesting. Honestly, before we started talking, before I met him, I saw the topic of the episode on my calendar, and I was like, I don't know how this one's really gonna resonate. I don't know about this topic, bringing spiritual intelligence into the workplace. And I didn't fully understand what he was going to talk about. Now, I myself am a believer in Jesus. I absolutely have that foundation of faith. We've had a number of guests on this show who are also believers, and that's it's a very important thing in running their business, in consulting with people. But anytime we get into the spiritual intelligence, it can go one of a couple ways, right? And it's I believe in the universe and everything happens for a reason and karma and all that stuff. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm just going to come out and say it flat out. But the other side is forcing a religion down somebody's throat. And I'm not on that side either. I don't agree with that at all. This episode, we went in a totally different direction, and I absolutely loved it. And one of the things that Yossi said was that spiritual intelligence, or SQ, if you will, it's practical. It's not religious. And while I'm talking here, if you're watching, I'm going to put the thumbnail on the screen. SQ, lead with purpose, with a brain. That's over there on YouTube. So go check that out. It's also on whatever platform you're listening to this on, just without that thumbnail. But we also talked about how to build a spiritually intelligent culture. And to me, it kind of ties back into the episode. I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago with Charlie Johnson. This is to me a more practical way to do what Charlie was kind of hinting at, where if everyone in your team is more grounded spiritually, and they can tap into that higher power intelligence, you can have more compassion for others. You lose the judgment, and it just up levels the whole environment of your workplace. We also talked about the value of being truly present with somebody. I'm going to play a clip in just a second where Yossi talks about that a little bit. But this whole thing really centers on combating disengagement in the workplace. And I thought it was a really cool conversation because, again, without forcing religion down somebody's throat, because nobody wants that. And I don't know a whole lot of people that really advocate for that. But if we can just help people understand, and let's all take a step back and say, before we seek to be understood, let's seek to understand. That's a motto that I just absolutely live by. I love to, if something offends me, I want to ask more questions of that person, or I want to figure out what's going on in me. Why did I get offended at that? Rather than forcing my belief system down somebody else's throat, forcing my perspective, or just going to anger, judgment, whatever other emotion. Insert your emotion here, if you will. And that's kind of what this episode was about for me. So I really enjoyed this episode. Let me play a clip here from Yossi, and you could check this out before you go back and listen to or re-listen to this episode.
Our most scarce resource in life is our attention, moment to moment. Life passes by. Now, I'm talking to you. I sense your presence. You're attending to me. You're listening, your body language. If I sensed you're thinking about tomorrow or what happened yesterday with your family or whatever, I'm not going to be so motivated. Well, why am I expressing so much? He's distracted. He's looking at his phone, his text messages. He's not here. So bringing our presence, our attention to the person and the issue at hand is a way of respecting them and showing them that we care and what they're doing is important and valuable.
Absolutely could not agree more. And I love that clip too, because it's something we get. It's easy to be distracted, and we get distracted, especially when we're talking to others. You're probably distracted while you're listening to or watching this right now, and that's totally okay. But the power of presence with another human being cannot be overstated, especially in the workplace, whether they're your employees, your colleagues, people you report to, bosses, whatnot, potential customers. I mean, the list goes on and on. Being present and the power to be present is, I believe it's a muscle. It's a skill you have to practice to be really good at. I've definitely put in the time myself to do that. And I think it pays off on this podcast, because Yossi even hinted at it. He said, he can feel my presence. And a number of guests have said that to me. It's not something I take. It's not an ego stroke for me. It really is like, for me to put on the best episode and the best content out there, I need to be fully present with our guests. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy progression. And for some people, it's harder than others. But for me, it's something I know is important and people can feel it. So go back and listen to that episode. There's a ton of gold nuggets you can pull from it. But we're moving on. We got a lot to cover in a little bit of time. The Tuesday's episode, second episode of the week, Jillian Utesh. Jillian is you can call her a neighbor, maybe. She's a local to Raleigh, where I am, and we happen to meet in a networking group, which I thought was super cool. And I heard about her product, the service she offers, at her software platform, and I was like, that is one of the coolest things I think I've ever heard. I've heard other people do similar work, but when we got to peeling back the curtain of a little bit of what she's doing, it's human to human marketing, but with AI. Toss the thumbnail on the screen, real AI networking. I've used similar services where you just have robots reach out to people, and it's canned scripts and sequences of events. Hers is different though, in that it customizes the conversation to the person. AI is changing so fast, and day by day there's new updates. It's almost impossible to keep up with everything that's going on. But Jillian had a way to leverage technology to increase her human interactions, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant. We need more of that. We need less canned cold outreach messages, and we need more human interactions. But why not leverage the tool? Because you are going to get no's from people. You are going to get ignored from people. Let's not get discouraged about those things. Let's have the robot handle the no's, and you only get the yeses. We talked about that on the episode where she had a client or a user of her software program, and this woman got so discouraged because she was in sales and her success rate was only about 10 or 12%. But when she eliminated that, because the robot was basically handling the no's, her success rate in her mind, her perceived success rate, was 100%, because she's only dealing with the people when they want to actually have a conversation. Now, the volume and the numbers didn't change, but her perception of it changed. And therefore, her closing ratio, the next step in the pipeline, went through the roof. So that, to me, is a great example of how we can have better connections, leverage our energy in the correct way, and actually make a difference when we're trying to grow our business. So let me play a clip here from Jillian. You could check this out, but this one, if you do anything with human beings in your business, so yes, everybody, highly suggest you listen to this episode and take a look at her software platform.
So I just, in a step of just frustration and bravery, said, you know what? It can't get any worse than it is. Let's see if AI can help us do these essential but repetitive tasks that are needed to data mine for new contacts and engage with them, reach out to them, send them messages, comment on their posts. Can help us do that, then I can get to the stage like you and I are right now, where we're actually talking, we're actually connected. That's what I crave and what I need.
I love it. Yes, more of that, more of those things. Let's be efficient and actually build relationships rather than just staring at LinkedIn all day long and nowhere and just getting discouraged. So again, go check out that episode. I thought it was amazing. We got to peel back the layers of her software a little bit and go a little bit more in depth than just that clip, but amazing stuff. Thank you, Jillian, for coming on the show. Third episode of the week, Tracy Sundquist, and her episode was all about the 5 crucial skills to get ahead in business. I'm not going to go through her whole framework here on this episode. Go back and listen to that. I absolutely agree with the 5 skills, though. But she talked about learning the languages of business and how that can sometimes hold us back. Potentially a basic conversation for some of you who have been in business a while. But even just the language of finance and understanding your numbers, that's stuff I personally see with clients and other people that I talk to in networking groups. That happens at all stages of business. Really understanding your numbers for the stage you're at and the nuances of how to use that information to solve problems, take advantage of opportunities, or get to the next level. The language or the literacy skills of business is a huge deal. We talked about mastering prioritization, talked about problem solving, and understanding your data objectively, taking the emotions out of running a business so that you can actually get to that next level in business. So I thought this was a great episode. It was a highlight of the fundamental skills of business, but also how to apply that to the current stage you're at. And I honestly, I love these episodes because you think about sports and the greatest athletes in the world. Kobe Bryant comes to mind, and you always hear stories about him practicing the basics and the fundamentals. Michael Jordan, same thing. Tiger Woods. Let's try to use some non-basketball analogies here. They practice the basics because they know that by mastering those, they can get better at the other stuff. I think in business, a lot of times we get so caught up with the new and the next opportunity that we kind of lose sight of the basics. I mean, we just talked about it with Jillian, right? AI, networking, technology, and software platforms. That's fantastic. What's the basics of networking, though? Do we practice those things? Do you show up? Are you present on the calls? Let's toss it back to Monday with Yossi. If a robot reaches out to people and you have a conversation with them, are you present with them? Are you following up with them? Are you caring about them as a human being? That's the basics that we often forget, which is why I love having these episodes on this show, because it's that reminder that sometimes it's not the new thing and the next thing. It's just being really good at the basic things that are going to propel our business forward. So I forgot to put the thumbnail on the screen. Here it is, 5 skills for business with the graph. Let's dive into a clip from Tracy, and then we'll round out the week with Jake Smolarek. Here we go.
If you're stuck in fulfillment, that is and this is going to sound bad, I don't know how else to say it, but that is the lowest use of a business owner's time, because that is the easiest thing to replace to somebody else. But what we see is that they're spending time to save money rather than spending money to save time. And you absolutely cannot do that if you're expecting the practice to grow.
You've heard that, right? You've heard that 1,000 times. I've heard that 1,000 times. I've probably said it 400 times myself. But how are you really living by it? Are you analyzing the tasks that you're doing? Are you taking into account where your time is going and what revenue value is associated with that time? Not everything that you do has to be producing revenue. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But what I will say is, are you looking at where your time is going? Is it the highest and best use of your time? At least the majority of the time. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's spending 100% of their time, their waking moments, on generating revenue or the exact things that they should be doing. But if you're not at least reflecting on that and trying to get better, I think you're going to find yourself slipping back into old habits because it feels better. It feels so much better to scroll through my emails or social media than it does to go actually solve a problem that's going to move the business forward. If we don't keep an eye on that, you're going to slip back into old habits. One fun little tip I have on that one that ties into that clip and that episode is I color code my calendar. As nerdy as that sounds, I fully understand that. I get that. But I use Google Calendar. I classify things with different colors, and then I can review that at the end of the week. How much time, what percentage of my time did I spend on certain activities, things that are delegatable, deletable, revenue producing? I have all these things color coded on my calendar. I think I've shared that on this podcast before. I may have shared screenshots as well, but that to me is the best way. So at a glance, I can see, okay, am I investing my time or am I spending my time? Very important metric I like to keep an eye on. And I advise all of our clients to do the same thing. I advise you to do the same thing. So hopefully that helps. And again, like I said, get back to the basics of business. We don't have to overcomplicate things. That's a very simple thing you can do without actually having to track anything because the calendar does it for me. So let's focus on the basics. Rounding out the week, talk about basics. Jake Smolarek, why clarity beats motivation. I will remember to put this one on the screen. There we go. It's GPS for your business. Jake talked about this concept that I wholeheartedly agree with. It's the core of our Harmonious business architecture, our small business operating system. And that is what we call navigation. It's your mission, your vision, and your core values. And we talked about this stuff. It's another back to basics episode, right? But Jake has his own vision GPS system where he helps people set clear visions, set goals that are, we'll use the SMART goal format, a planning process to make sure you get to those goals, and then systems to make sure you execute on them consistently. So VGPS, Vision GPS, it's an acronym there. He talked about a lot of the different strategies that are, again, super simple and relatively basic, but so important that if you stop focusing on it, you will probably either slip back into old habits or slip into bad habits that would potentially delay your success and your growth in business. So let's hear a clip from Jake, and then we'll round out this episode for this week.
If you have the clear vision of what is it that you want to achieve, it will push you even when you have a bad day. Most people procrastinate because they have no idea what they want. We wouldn't be procrastinating if we knew exactly what is it that we want.
Yeah, powerful idea there from Jake. And it's true. I think you probably, if you look back at the last couple weeks or months from your own life and your own business, when you do procrastinate, it's okay. Again, we're human, we're not perfect, but it's probably because you didn't have a concrete plan or vision for even that day or even that block of time where you were procrastinating. It happens to me. I'm a human being just like you. But I love that concept of if you're really super clear on your vision and where you want to be, it makes the execution of the things that you have to do so much easier and so much more compelling too, because you know it's tied to a positive outcome that you've aligned with yourself and that you want. But we drift away from that stuff. And again, back to basics, revisit the fundamentals. That's a lot of what this week was, but to me, it was a great 4 episodes. Thank you to Tracy, Jake, Yossi, Jillian, the 4 of them. Fantastic episodes. I can't say I liked any one better than another episode this week, but I think they're all really, really important to go back and listen to. Next week, we got 4 more incredible guests lined up. I can't wait to share those with you. So come back here next week, next Friday. We'll do another Wupdate episode. But for now, thanks for listening to Harmonious at Lunch, and we will see you next week.
Time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanopt.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.